Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. I've got just one story to share with you in this latest Moon Family Sedan lukewarm jam. Ain't no more hot jams up in this bitch. It ain't Lambo season, son. But look at this headline from you today. Ripple CTO says Bitcoin doesn't deliver on its main pitch. Words are hard sometimes. But what I'm going to do is go straight to the source. I'm not even going to read the article. It was based on a thread between Ripple CTO, who of course is David Schwartz, co-creator of XRP and the XRP Ledger. It's between him and somebody who just happens to be participating in crypto Twitter, and it's insightful. Now, David Schwartz is a literal genius. So when he says stuff, I like to pay attention. I learn stuff from David Schwartz. And he articulates why Bitcoin is not what is purported to be. And I'll just also add, David Schwartz didn't say this, but it's very clear that the problem that was not solved by Bitcoin has been solved by what he co-created, XRP and the XRP Ledger. Because the thing is, and there's no way to get around this, and David Schwartz explains why. But with Bitcoin and really any proof of work or proof of stake system, there's friction that is unnecessary because there are other ways to do things. But when you're talking about coming to consensus to verify transactions, if you're utilizing proof of work or proof of stake, you're adding friction that doesn't have to be there and isn't there in other systems. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so XRP community member Mason vs. Lewis, whose name I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing correctly, if not, my bad, wrote the following. Important quote about blockchain from the extraterrestrial himself, Vitalik Buterin. And shows a picture of Vitalik Buterin with a quote from him that reads as follows. Whereas most technologies tend to automate workers on the periphery doing menial tasks, blockchains automate away the center. Instead of putting the taxi driver out of a job, blockchain puts Uber out of a job. Blockchain puts Uber out of a job and lets the taxi drivers work with the customer directly. So what he's saying there effectively is this type of technology can displace or eliminate middlemen in a number of areas. But the thing is, when it comes to Bitcoin and proof of work and proof of stake, not so much, as David Schwartz points out. So David Schwartz jumped in here and he wrote the following. This is false for proof of work or proof of stake chains. With them, the block producers are still intermediaries between those who wish to use the blockchain who, like Uber, benefit from keeping enough residual friction in the system to enrich them. And then he also states here, it broke off in a different thread, he also stated, every bit of transaction fee that Alice pays but Bob doesn't receive goes to an intermediary. That intermediary benefits by keeping those fees as high as they can get away with. These work just like Uber's fees that the customer pays, but driver does not keep due. So think about this. If you compare that to, for instance, what's going on with XRP and the XRP Ledger, yes, there's a small transaction fee. Small transaction fee when utilizing the XRP Ledger, but that doesn't go to anyone. That's why it's ridiculously small, fractions of a penny. It's just designed to prevent spamming of the XRP Ledger because, it's certainly true that as transactions increase, if you're trying to clog up the XRP Ledger with all sorts of nonsense transactions, it does get more costly. So even though each individual transaction might not cost that much, if you want to, in any sort of notable way, impact the usability of the XRP Ledger in a negative way, it's going to cost you a fortune and you can't sustain it. It just gets more and more expensive. But when people aren't abusing it, that doesn't happen. So it hasn't been a problem. XRP's been around for a decade at this point, has been a non-issue. But with Bitcoin, there's incentive to get away with charging for fees, if you're a miner, as much as you can get away with in that, quote unquote, competitive environment. But you don't have that type of environment with XRP and the XRP Ledger. There's a better way to do things. So the problem actually has been solved. In this thread, David Schwartz doesn't say that he's a pretty, humble guy. That's how he strikes me. So it's fine, but it has been solved. I'm going to say it. He solved it, frankly. And so somebody named Cryptophysicist came in, and there's this interesting, it's totally civil, but there was a debate back and forth here, and I want to share this with you because I find it interesting, and I love seeing the way that David Schwartz articulates his position and makes the complex understandable. So this individual who goes by the name Cryptophysicist on Twitter wrote to David Schwartz and said, I see what you mean, but you are not complaining over transaction fees with credit card payment. If you want a sustainable mechanism, you have to put something in to keep it running. And fees are high, mainly at ETH. Everywhere else is cheaper than transaction fees for banks. And then David Schwartz says, right, no, but nobody argues that credit card companies aren't an intermediary that, like Uber, keeps fees as high as they can get away with. Yes, Uber needs fees to keep the exchange running, just as proof of work and proof of stake blockchains do. Vitalik's claim makes no sense for proof of work and proof of stake. And so you can see the comparison he's making here, right? Uber is a company. They're a middleman between, an Uber driver and somebody who wants a ride from the Uber driver. So they get a fee for facilitating that service. See that, and so what David Schwartz is citing here is that similar to how Bitcoin works. Because you have a user on the Bitcoin blockchain who wants to send Bitcoin, say they want to buy something actually, they actually wanted to do that. Or, if they want to send that to another party, well, there is an intermediary, there is a miner, and they want to make as much as they can on that transaction. So in that scenario, if you're comparing them, and I am right now, as David Schwartz is, the Bitcoin miner is equivalent to Uber itself, the middleman. There is a middleman on there, but with XRP, there is no middleman. You see what I'm saying? The problem's been solved. But anyway, Cryptophysicist then comes back to David Schwartz and says, actually, it does make sense for everything decentralized. If you take one rigid company which is centralized and is working by its own rules, you must do as people in charge say must. And I'm assuming that his first language is not English here. In blockchain, there is a contract that is free of bosses in charge. You get what you sign for. And David Schwartz wrote, that's true of Uber. Uber makes you some offer with some amount of money that they take, and you can accept it or not. Similarly, proof of work and proof of stake systems offer you some transaction fee that they take, and you can accept it or not. What is the difference from the user's perspective? The point is, just like Uber is a middleman who tries to tax the rider-driver flow as much as they can get away with, proof of work and proof of stake chains have block producers who try to tax the sender recipient flow as much as they can get away with too. It's a lie to claim otherwise. Exactly. And so this goes back to reason 11 billion as to why XRP is the best cryptocurrency on the entire damn planet when it comes to payments, just in a general sense. A cryptophysicist seems to still disagree at this point and responds, this is true. If you want someone to work for you, you usually have to put it in motion. There is no perpetuum mobile where someone or something will work instead of you without putting any effort or funds to keep it in motion. Proof of work, proof of stake, Uber, bank, or is there? Exactly. So he doesn't seem to get that such an environment does exist. It's called XRP and the XRP Ledger. Okay. And David responds and says, the pitch with Bitcoin was no intermediaries and be your own bank. It doesn't deliver on that pitch. But your core premise is at least somewhat false. Google and others, for example, provides DNS to the public at no charge, and that's domain name system. And then David says, of course, they do have their reasons. They get data. They promote themselves. Proof of work and proof of stake systems deliberately increase the cost of processing transactions such that those kinds of models don't work. Exactly. Which is why the best incentive is no incentive. And David Schwartz is the one that came up with that line. The best incentive when it comes to a consensus mechanism on a blockchain is no incentive. Because that's the only way you're going to eliminate the friction. And the friction has been eliminated. You still need to technically have like a little fraction of it, which is why XRP, the transactions cost a fraction of a penny, but it's so close to zero, it doesn't matter. So you still need to have that friction just to make sure that the network can't get spammed, but you don't even notice it, So I think it doesn't matter. As far as I'm concerned, the problem's been solved. But then David Schwartz also says, the problem is that so many people are just lying about this problem already being solved in their systems when it simply isn't. We aren't going to fix a problem if we claim it's already fixed. And crypto physicist responds and says, isn't Bitcoin proof of work? Sorry, I guess I am not enough competent to argue any further. The problems are uncontrolled gas fees? You mean fees should be regulated? I always thought that gas fees are carefully selected to sustain a system and not for making someone rich. Yeah, so nothing against this guy. He's operating in good faith, but I'm kind of surprised he's still not getting what David Schwartz is explaining here. So hopefully it's clear with David Schwartz's words and then me explaining a little bit further on top of that what the actual problem is. But I think he wasn't connecting the dots here. No offense to the guy. He's perfectly civil and nice, so I'm not trying to be mean, but I really think he just wasn't getting it. And then David Schwartz says, the issue is the same with both proof of work and proof of stake. The issue is that block producers are incentivized to keep the fees as high as they can get away with because they get to keep those fees, just like Uber does. The pitch is be your own bank, no intermediaries, and not like Uber. But that is all false. I am not proposing any particular solution, just saying that it would be nice if people could stop lying about this because it's frustrating for those working on a solution. And that's perfectly fine. David Schwartz doesn't have to say it, but again, XRP and the XRP Ledger. Just saying. He created it. He's being very humble here. And then David Schwartz says, look at what Vitalik is saying here. And he shares the quote that I already read, so I'm not going to reread it. It's on your screen, though, but it's the Vitalik quote. But so David Schwartz says, look at what Vitalik is saying here. It's obviously false. Those who want to send ETH can't work directly with those who want to receive ETH. They have to pay whatever fee the block producers can get away with charging, just as Uber's drivers and riders pay Uber's fee. Exactly. And so in the case of Uber, free market system in the United States, capitalism, the market will bear what it can bear. And here with ETH, clearly a similar middleman, with the, regarding the block producers. So it is what it is. It's just, isn't it nice that we don't have to deal with this nonsense and drama with the XRP Ledger? Like when it comes to the tech stuff, if anything, the XRP Ledger is boring because it just works. And that's nice, as from a technical perspective. You don't have all this drama, about block size and, a bunch of forks happening and this and that, because you don't need to improve XRP in any way for it to be better at payments. You can change it. Like, for instance, obviously the XLS 20 amendment that was adopted, and XRP Ledger will change over time. It has been changing over a span of a decade. I'm not saying that there isn't any room for improvement. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying when it comes to payments specifically, the problem's done been solved, son. We don't have to worry about that any further, and it's nice. And so when people keep trying to use technology that's inferior in their tech stack to fulfill Satoshi Nakamoto's vision with Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer cash system, I just kind of just roll my eyes at the concept. For some people, it's just ideological, but it's like, why don't you just use better technology on better layer one technology, and then you don't have to worry about this nonsense. And I'm still pro Bitcoin. Look, you can use Spend the Bits, for example, in certain parts of the world anyway. It's still a newer company that's expanding, but you can use that to move Bitcoin because there's a representation of Bitcoin on the XRP Ledger, and then it's actually backed by real Bitcoin. So you can use Bitcoin in that sense, just not on layer one. So there are ways to solve this, and if we're going to do that, and I hope we do, I hope it sustains, that's fine, because Bitcoin, since it's first, it has become, the one with the brand cachet, if you will, the most well-known, and there is something to be said about standards in life. When something becomes a standard, it is hard to supplant, and Bitcoin's just here. So if you can move it utilizing layer 2 technology, and you can, utilizing the XRP Ledger, I think that's a good enough reason for it to stick around. So I am actually optimistic for the long-term viability of Bitcoin, but we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds. Interesting stuff, though. I love hearing from David Schwartz. Hopefully you find that as interesting and informative as I did, but I'll wrap up here. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.